So what is a good list with the most commonly asked questions in job interviews at TikTok? And I performed an analysis over what's available so far online, given that they are, on a hiring surge and they've been hiring internationally for a couple of months now. So I've done that analysis. I also talked to some people who actually interviewed there, as well as took a little bit of my own experience to maybe reframe a bit these questions and to basically have this list of the 10 top questions. So I'll go through these questions one by one, from the least commonly asked to the most commonly asked. And the least commonly asked, which again gets asked quite often and you should prepare for, is do you know anything about our products and services? So if you do go into a job interview, you should know what TikTok actually sells, and especially about their ad products. You should understand their business model. It should go without saying. So this is on number 10. Next one, tell us about a failure. And you'll be lucky if they also tell you and what you learned from it, because in the failure stories, which is, by the way, of course, a behavioral question, you should focus on ensuring you talk about the proper failure and then ensuring you talk about the learnings for at least half of the time. I have plenty of other videos on this channel explaining how do you answer questions about failure. Next one, a time when you came up with a metric to measure or to improve something. This is another behavioral question, and you should go without saying that you should answer it with the STAR format. Situation, task, action, and results. The situation and task can go hand in hand quite often. The situation and task can also be reframed by others by problem statement, so it calls PAR, or even they leave out the T from the STAR, so they call it SAR. So there are variations of how do you go about the behavioral answer, but the simplest is STAR, so it's perfectly fine if you stay there. So a metric to measure or to improve something. So this is about data-driven decision making, which obviously TikTok as a startup, as someone with a rather new mentality, embraces, and they are quite serious about this. And this brings me to my next question: a time when you use data to solve a problem. So again, I put two questions here about data simply because I found it to be a rather important topic in their conversations. Next one here, a time when you how do you work in a fast-paced environment, actually? So they want to see your bias for action. Needless to say, they're a startup, they have a startup mentality, but they want to see how do you progress there. So this is, of course, another behavioral question. So you should think what's the best story that you have to communicate when it comes to working in a fast-paced environment, in a STAR format, of course. Next one here, tell me about a noteworthy accomplishment. Noteworthy accomplishment, this is basically asking what's your most successful project. So they ask you, okay, advertise yourself, please. So if they are so straightforward, and I'm not expecting them to be that often so straightforward, but you should prepare that one thing that sets you apart from other candidates and that one project you're the most proud of. And more interestingly, it's prepared to talk about it fluently and concisely, given the situation that you're in. If you want to roleplay, I also have a free roleplay service that you can use with other candidates preparing for these job interviews. But remember here about behavioral interviewing is not only about what you prepare on, in other words, how you prepare that written story, but also how you speak it. So how you speak it is often more than half of your performance in some cases. Next question here, what's your strength and what's your weakness? So this actually gets asked in job interviews. I thought, this was a question of the past to ask you about the strengths and weakness, but it's a very relevant and very used question in TikTok interviews as well. So that strengths, from experience, might take you even half a day to find what your true strength and be your true self when you talk about your strengths. And on the weakness side, if I may give advice, aside from the ton of videos I have on this YouTube channel on how do you go about this and examples, it's about how you communicate your weakness, not about what your weakness is. Of course, except if you fake your weakness. such as you work too much. So that type of thing that won't fly in a high-performing company. But strengths or weakness is something that you do get asked in job interviews. The next one here, number 3, how do you handle objections and conflict? How do you handle conflict in the workplace? So this is another, on the general side, but still behavioral question. You want to show your interpersonal skills and you want to show your ability to earn trust with someone in a job interview. So needless to say, you must think about what's the best example you have to sell yourself here on being, diplomatic and being able to earn people's trust. Number 2 here, and this is a bit of a surprise to me, actually, it's why TikTok? Why TikTok? If you will know my YouTube channel, you'll know that for any other list I have with any other company, why this company is the number 1 most asked question, while in case of TikTok, it's the 2nd most asked question. Now, how do you go about answering why TikTok? I'm actually also planning to make a video about this, but long story short, you will have to show some real creativity, in my opinion, when doing this. So I have a couple of ideas in mind, but maybe if I have to give you a couple of pointers, try to fit into the company's values, try to link it with the company's mission, try to differentiate yourself from other candidates, and tell them what's in for you when answering this question. So this is a template, and I'd be a little bit skeptical of going templated with TikTok, because they are short form video and they encourage creativity after all, but these would be the main elements you'd want to consider when using this. And the number 1 most asked question in TikTok interviews is, tell me about yourself. Like your previous experience, or walk me through your background, or whatever other variation of this question. And this actually makes perfect sense given the stage they are in as a company. They are on a hiring surge. It means people are really, really busy there. Their hiring department is really, really busy. It means they didn't have time to read your CV thoroughly, most likely, before the actual interview begins. And it's not only about their HR department, but whomever is going to be interviewing you, because you will be interviewing with the future members of your team. They will likely not have read your CV thoroughly. So that's why when someone asks you this, basically they give you the upper hand in a conversation. So this is the main reason why this is the single most important question you would want to prepare for these types of interviews. If you sell yourself well and if you go well into the conversation, you have that rapport building advantage, and basically you have already earned their trust in a way, right? So it's from then on, it's just about managing expectations. You don't have to have a stellar performance anymore, right? You don't have to have that one thing that sets you apart from everyone else. So this is, in my opinion, this is why it's extremely important to sell yourself, to A/B test on how to sell yourself. Of course, I have plenty of other videos here if you want to take a look on how do you answer, tell me about yourself. To give you some pointers, it must be on the emotional side, I'd rather say, for companies such as TikTok. It should be inclusive, with your experience and with the highlights in your career, but I would very much encourage you to make it emotional as much as possible, whatever emotional is supposed to mean to you, because this actually means different things to different experience. But it's always a challenge to communicate your life story in 2 minutes in a job interview, but an extremely important question, and this is one of the main takeaways of this whole video. Know to sell yourself, to talk about yourself in an interview with TikTok. So there you go. This would be my list with the top 10 questions you'd want to prepare for a TikTok job interview. So hopefully you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.